morning, Facebook. It's good to be with you today. No matter which way you're tuning in, I just want to say hi and good morning. I know I'm like a minute or two early, so we're just going to chat for a couple seconds while we wait for people to get notified that we're rocking and rolling first thing in the morning. We got the most beautiful dump of snow last night. It's not a ton, but it was enough to cover everything that had melted, and the trees are glistening, and I'm going to think of every possible way to stay inside and kind of just cozy up by the fire and get a lot of work done today. So it's lovely, lovely, lovely. It's the kind of day that makes me want to read a ton, which is kind of what our topic is about this morning. So I just want to say good morning. If you guys are joining us for the very first time ever, welcome. That's amazing. My name is Dana Moore. I'm a Presidential Diamond and co-founder of Live Naturally Tools. And if you guys haven't been on our website lately, if you go to livenaturallytools.com, we have some international downloads for you. One of the things that we get requested for the most are tools in other countries. And that is actually a very hard ticket to fill in many ways, but we have been able to create paid downloads for other markets because we're not going to be shipping, handouts to China. And so check that out. We have a lot more coming. Portuguese is coming for you for the Brazilian market, and New Zealand's on the way. And so there's just a lot happening there, but we have quite a handful of European tools. Italy's on its way. If you don't see some of those there, they're coming. They're in process. But check those out because you probably didn't know about those, and they're brand new. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that, okay? So we are going to dive in. Are we good on time? Are we on? Yep. Okay, 7:01. Let's rock and roll. And you guys, the snow might keep me from hot yoga. If you guys know me, hot yoga Tuesday is my hot yoga day. But that's okay. I'm still going to move my body and just skip my class today because it is just not worth risking your life out on the interstate, is it? It's just not. Just say it isn't, okay? It isn't. Okay, so we are going to jump into this topic of strategic personal development. And I want to talk about this because I love personal development. Like, I think it is the key to so many things. But I also think that if we can maximize our time and do it in just the right way, we're going to even find greater success with it. And so I want to talk to you about what that could possibly look like, okay? I have some notes here because that just helps me stay on track so I don't ramble and go on bunny trails for you. But I want you to know that when I'm saying personal development, I'm definitely talking about reading books, but I'm also for sure talking about listening to books on Audible and podcasts and plugging yourself into training where it applies, okay? So I might say the word reading a lot, and if you're like, I'm just not a reader, I really like to listen, that is totally fine. That's amazing. We live in a day and age where we can listen to books, over and over again through apps like Audible or Libby. Libby's a really good one, by the way, you guys, just a free little tip here because it connects to your library. And for the most part, I think everything is free. And so if you have a local library card, you can have this app called Libby, Libby, and you can get books that way too. So anyway, all that to say, when I say reading, I mean all the things, okay? Studying, personal development, all of those things go into it, but reading or listening to books is going to be a very key one, okay? So I do not think that all readers are leaders, because I know a lot of people who read and don't contribute a whole lot to the world or their teams. However, leaders must be readers, okay? You have got to develop yourself. You have got to be going somewhere if you want people to follow you. And so you must take this part seriously, okay? So there's this guy, he's a personal success authority. His name is Brian Tracy, and my husband he devours books right now. But this is from a book he was reading. We were having like a discussion about it, and it said in there, I'm going to read it directly because it's a quote. If you devote yourself to one topic and grow in it, so read and develop yourself for 3 years, okay, one topic. and you put about an hour of study in a day, you will be in the top of your field. That's it. Read for 1 hour a day on one topic for about 3 years, you'll be in the top of your field. If you continue that amount of growth for 5 years, you will be a national authority on that subject. And for 7, one of the best in the world at what you do. Okay? Amazing, amazing. I always think that we think that success comes somehow through magic, somehow through maybe our skill set, our strengths. Well, the reason she's successful and I'm not is because she is this and I'm not that, and there's so much research to show that top performers, top leaders, people who are considered the authority in so many different fields, no one has a uniform or unifying strength. When we're talking about strengths finders, that is not actually the key to success whatsoever, but habits are. And that is good news. That's really good news, because high performers aren't just extroverts, and incredible thought leaders aren't just introverts. It's not one or the other. It's not a certain skill set, and if you don't possess it, well, it's just not in your cards. It's not like that. It's about habits. So I want you to think about this, that I don't know if I read this quote yet, but this is a quote from the book. Reading and taking to heart one book a week will make you one of the most educated, smartest, most capable, and highest paid professionals in your field. So you guys, if you want to be a leader in this industry, if you want to reach the ranks of Blue Diamond, Presidential Diamond, and even beyond, you got to take your personal development, your personal growth very seriously, okay? So one thing I want you to do within that, if you don't already feel that type of conviction, I want you to go back to time blocking, figure out a time of the day that you're going to read, listen to, whatever. Listening is kind of awesome because you can multitask. Like if you need to fold the laundry and listen to your book at the same time, or if you need to clean and and listen to your book at the same time, you need to organize stuff, prepare for your class and organize your class bag and stuff like that, you can listen at the same time, and you can listen when you're driving. Okay, so huge fan of that. And then I love actually the act of shutting down anything mobile with blue light that's going to be in my eyes, and picking up a real book and reading. I usually do that at night, like the last hour of the day. Okay, so anyway, here we go. Determine your goals for the next quarter or the next year. Okay, so this is really important, because I don't want you to be a hamster in the wheel, and I don't want you to think that every single personal development book out there is going to be the best use of your time. Now, obviously, you read something and it's geared towards personal development and psychology and moving your needle forward, you're going to grow. You're absolutely going to grow. But if you can actually line those books up with your goals, you're going to hit your target so much faster and so much more effectively, because it's not just our personal development that gets us somewhere. It's not just our actions, it's both. So you can have the goal maybe to hit the rank of diamond, let's say in July. So it's not that far away. That's your goal. I would like you to ask yourself, what do I need to grow in to be a diamond in doTERRA? What am I lacking to achieve this goal? Okay, because we know you're going to need massive action, and we know you're going to teach a lot of classes, but maybe your closing isn't strong, and that's where you're going to dive into personal development and training and sales and things like that, so that your closing is that much more effective. Because why set the goal and not increase your skill to match who you and what you will become with that, and to get there faster and to get there stronger and more effective, you have to do that. Otherwise, you're kind of like a hamster in a wheel, and you're like, I'm doing it. And you're like, well, are you really doing it? Because I feel like you're just spinning in a circle, and that gets very, very tiring after a while. And when I coach people, I'm often, some of the questions are like, I'm doing all the right things. Like, how come I'm not as successful as you? Or how come I haven't moved my needle forward? Or what's going on? And they are doing a lot of the right things, but the things that will come up for you that are like the hiccups or the hurdles, they don't just magically go away. You don't just magically get better at closing or networking. Like, you don't just like, oh yeah, like I just need to get better at closing. And then like some amazing epiphany happens and you get better at closing. That's not how it works. You have to put in the work of finding the resources that are going to develop those skills in you, those muscles to make you good at, okay? So a couple of things, knowing your goals, like knowing what your goals are will add some congruency to your life. Because when you have your goals set, then you align your personal development plus your actions, and that helps you to achieve that goal. And from the outside looking in, like from your team's perspective and other people watching you, it's impressive. There's congruency there. They're like, oh, she says she wants this. She's doing this action. Wow, she's reading that book. That's incredible. And that people are watching your life, you know? When I see people say they have goals and are working towards it, and we get, you know, a very small snapshot of people on social media, so I know that's not the full picture, but then they post something like, hey, I need a new show. And I've watched that, I need a new show. And I'm like thinking, how much time are you watching shows? And if your goal is Blue Diamond, but the main thing you're talking about right now is like what you're watching, what you have watched, and what you want to watch, I'm like, that doesn't line up. That's not congruent to me. You know, that's not like, you're not really serious about wanting that. You don't have a very strategic timeline for this. You're kind of like, yeah, but I'm just gonna, you know, not take it very seriously. So I think congruency is such a thing to respect in people when they are putting their money where their mouth is, in a sense, and have their actions, what they're reading, what they're growing in, and what they're moving forward. And all of those things are like part of the motor that pushes the car forward, okay? Okay, don't just read a book from one author, okay? So if you want to grow in, let's just say, leadership, that's a great thing to grow in. I'm a huge fan of John Maxwell. I love John Maxwell. I've probably read a half a dozen of his books at least, and listened to probably more on Audible, but he's not the only person that has good things to say about leadership. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're only like taking in one person's viewpoint, they're still human and they have a very strategic or specific style on that. And that's going to be very helpful, but you're going to need a little bit of input from other people to help you figure out who you are and how you fit within the context of their wisdom. And so it's really important to do that. And I was going to make up this great reading list of my recommendations, but Ange Peters already has done that. So if you go to Ange Peters, if you go to whole-fit.com, and just put in, I just put in her search tab books. I wanted to see what she had because it's a new feature she has on her website. And she's got them all like categorized. It's gorgeous. And I was like, man, if you don't know where to start, just go there and Ange will like hook you up and tell you what to do. And I love tons of her recommendations. I love. And then there was a good handful, probably a couple books in every single category that she has I hadn't read before. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to use this to help me kind of line up my reading list here coming up. So I just want to encourage you, pick the topic that aligns with your goal. Maybe it's networking, maybe it's leadership, maybe it's you have a huge money block, maybe it's something like that, maybe it's time blocking, maybe it's productivity, and you need to get better at it. But stop saying you need to get better at it and start reading books on how to get better at it and how to be amazing at that topic, you know, so that you're going to be on podcasts and you're going to be doing team calls on time blocking and productivity and, you know, high performance habits and habits of highly effective people because you've like read it and practiced it and applied it out the wazoo. Okay. That's a real word, by the way. Okay. I would encourage you, if the truth is, if you read about one topic for an hour a day for, you know, a couple years to be the authority in that. I mean, I know maybe you're like, that's not my goal to be the authority on, you know, productivity or whatever, that's fine. But the concept is if you devote the time to it, you will develop the skill and you will be excellent at that. So think that through and let it line up with your goal. Like you might have a goal for this quarter, but your overall goal for the end of the year is different. So maybe for this quarter, you line up books specifically on, you know, leadership, and then perhaps you're going into books more on networking or recruiting or sales and closing and that type of a thing. So it just depends on what your goals are and how and what you're going to read. it doesn't help you if you set a goal for a certain thing, like you're like, I just want to be a better leader. That's all I want to be. I'm just like, and then you start reading books about real estate or something. I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with leading. Great stuff. I mean, I want you to develop yourself, but it has nothing to do with leading and how people think and act and respond and how you should act and respond. So we want to be strategic there, okay? And just like anything, you guys, we can often look like we're doing the right things. And I think I'm very keen and aware of that, because even when we're talking about like, oh, so-and-so, you know, I'm trying to think how to say this right. So-and-so, you know, is doing this, this, and this. I don't know why they aren't finding success. Or this customer is doing this. I don't know why it's not translating into, you know, sharing. I don't, you know, things like that where you're like, it looks all good. What I'm trying to say is it looks good from the outside. I haven't figured out what the problem is. And I think it goes back to like that hamster in the wheel is we can be productive, but busyness doesn't actually equal success. And so we can be reading. We can be like, yeah, when your leader says to you, how's your personal development? You're like, I'm on it. I read, you know, I read. We're like, okay, moving on to the next question. And I would say dig deeper for yourself. What are you reading? Does it line up with your goals? Is it congruent with who you are? Is it moving the needle forward in your business? It should be, okay? It absolutely should be. So I think that might be all I have for you. I'm checking my notes to make sure. I'd love to know if you guys want to put in any questions. If you have questions about certain books or recommendations or things you want to grow in, but you're not sure where to start, I'll try to keep up with the chat there if you want to. If not, we won't go very long today, which is totally fine too. But I like to just make sure that I'm answering your questions, or I'll go back in the comments and try to put in some recommendations and answers as well. But I promise you, you're going to move the needle forward. And right now, I'll tell you what I'm reading right now. I am reading The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs, How to Be Insanely Great in Front of Any Audience. I'm reading this because I absolutely love public speaking, and we have to be great at public speaking when we teach classes. And now, if you are nervous about public speaking and teaching classes makes you nervous, join the club. I was terrified to teach classes because I didn't think I knew enough, and so I just started studying and studying and studying, and now, lo and behold, we make tools and do tutorials for people on how to teach classes, okay? So that's kind of how this thing will work. But I just believe I'm going to be speaking on a larger scale in the future. And so this is an important book. And I'm reading this actually with a group of Presidentials and Blues together. We have a little book club. But that being said, that's not the only public speaking book that I'll be reading. I'm going to be diving into it because the truth is I do love it, but I've never actually flexed that muscle hard enough to be like, how am I going to grow in this? You know, I need to grow in public speaking. Okay. Oh boy, some questions came in and I didn't see them. Okay. Tiffany Jones, you said, I'm a great resource for personal development. Thank you for saying that. Okay, Holly, I feel stuck in my biz, like had a few low months, and it's made me hesitant to approach people, which is not like me, because of my lack of success recently. Yes, totally. So part of that is kind of like get back on the horse. Sometimes action trumps learning. In fact, a lot of times it will. And so you just need to have a win. You really need to have a win. And so think about where you have like a warm market, like some low-hanging fruit, and I would go for that. I would go for that this week and get a win, get an enrollment through there. Put yourself back out there, because there's something about it that feels a little scary, but that's just the lie coming in that's playing in your mind, and it's going to hold you back. So put yourself back out there, and honestly, that will kind of, it'll wash that away. And then once you have a win, our brains are addicted to the win. You know, we're addicted to that. I love teaching classes because in my brain, it tells my brain like you're winning, like you're doing good things. And then when people enroll, it's like a hit of that, you know, dopamine. It's like, that was amazing. I love this. And then you just want to do it more and more and more. So when you fall off the horse in a sense, or you just get stuck a little bit, which happens to everybody, one of the things that's going to hold you back is waiting and waiting and waiting. So just like I would schedule a couple classes, I would call people, invite people, I would get some samples ready, and I would just get right back up and do it again. And you're going to find that you're like, oh, action actually creates excitement about this. But the lack of action is going to just actually build like this insecurity in you. Books for recruiting. Yeah, so part of that is just personal development as a whole. So you will attract people that recognize that you've got something going, that you're a train that's moving in a great direction, and that your business is thriving. So it goes back to even the question before with, I think it was Holly, is at to no fault, but there's a sense of like, if people don't see that you're doing anything, and they're kind of like, well, her train doesn't move, like, I don't even know if I want to jump on that train if nothing's really happening. And so we want to make sure that we are actually moving forward, because that's a great way to recruit, because you're like, hey, I've got the best thing going and I'm going, do you want to join me or not? But that being said, it just depends. It just depends on what you need to grow in as a leader, honestly. But when it comes to recruiting and network marketing and things like that, I'm trying to think of some really good books. Or personal development, like Deb Erickson has really great recruiting tools and like ideas of how to go about it, like creating your avatar, looking for that person, knowing who you're looking for is half the battle, so that when you actually see them, you're like, this is who I was looking for. And it's just like this universal pull, you guys, where if you focus on something and your energy goes towards it, it will show up for you over and over again. Like the more you talk about it and think about it and write it down and mention it, it's like, bam, it's just going to start to happen. It's the law of attraction. It's amazing. So start there. But look into Deb Erickson's stuff as well. I can't think of a great recruiting book straight off the bat, but if I do, I'll comment back a little bit. There are tools for learning strengths. What's the best way to know your areas for growth? That is such a good question. I would say trust your intuition on how to know how to grow or where to grow. Because you'll find that it's like the thing that you guys talk about the most. For example, we have, for our team, we're doing a whole month of just different types of fundamentals of teaching. So all about classes, all about teaching not just good, but great, ways to get a little creative when we feel stuck, stuff like that. Okay, so that's our whole theme for our team leadership calls. And within that, we had people ask, like, what's the biggest challenge for you right now? And a lot of people said closing and different things. And I kind of like would bet money on that nobody is reading books or listening to podcasts, though, about closing. They're kind of just like, I need to get better at closing. I need to get better at closing. And so I would say, listen to yourself on this. What do you say a lot? Like, I want to grow in this, or, and when it comes to teaching, you're like, maybe I don't teach well. Like maybe a public speaking book is going to be great for you, because it helps you to communicate in a way that makes people like want to listen, to sit there and buy what you're selling, and a lot of times they're buying into you as well. And so sometimes if you're not sure, don't get too caught up in like, I have got to specifically study this, because there is something to say about personal development as a whole actually changes you. People are attracted to the fact that you have like a spring of life, that you're like, wow, she's like on it, she's funny, she's confident, she's got goodness coming out of her, but you have to put it in, and they'll see that. So if you're not quite sure, just start with the John Maxwell book, honestly, because a lot of times you buy into this oil company for the product, and then you want to build because you're like, the comp plan is phenomenal, and this is the best opportunity I've ever seen. And then you realize, oh, I'm supposed to be a leader. Okay, I wasn't quite prepared for that part of it, so John Maxwell's a great place to start if you're not sure. Like, you can't go wrong with like 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, or Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, one of my favorites, something like that. Okay, GoPro's an awesome book. Okay. Oh, training or engagement on social media or in classes. So we have a course through Live Naturally. If you go on our website, livenaturallytools.com, Michelle Cannon has a social media course. I think it's an 8-week, 8-part course that you can buy, and she teaches you how to be phenomenal on Instagram and just tips for branding and social media and engagement and how to make that successful for your business. And then the other thing is you could just book a one-on-one with Michelle and she'll give you tips and things like that as well. So that is probably our most helpful tool there. I will say this though, if you want to be great on social media, keep going with personal development, because there is definitely, social media is not for everybody. It really isn't. And if you don't have a great presence and people aren't like liking what you do and follow you for a reason, they're not necessarily going to follow you for essential oils. Like there has to be a sense of like, oh, she's got great things to say. She's, shows up again consistently, congruently. She's everything that she posts lines up. But anybody can do well at social media. It goes right back to strengths versus the concept of habits. Okay, so putting in the right habits and developing yourself in a certain way over time, you're going to get better at something. But it doesn't necessarily have to be your strengths. If you want to get better, you just put in the habits and keep growing. But remember, the people are watching you. So I don't actually use social media to grow my doTERRA business very much. I have more so this year than ever before. But usually I don't. But I know the people are watching me. So if I am posting stuff like, my kids are sick for the 15th time and this winter is killing us, and then I'm like, essential oils are amazing and they're going to keep you healthy. And people are like, bull, I'm not buying it. Like, I don't understand. Where's the congruency here in your life, Or if you're posting passive aggressive stuff, or if you're dropping F-bombs in your posts, or things that are just like, people aren't attracted to that, And so you can be good at social media just by being very thoughtful about what you write on social media. And by not showing up on social media when you're angry or frustrated or want to vent, that is not the place for it. That's not what people want. It's not what they're going for. So try just adding value in general, adding good quotes, good thoughts, pictures, good things about life. See what people like and what they follow you for. That's my best tip. I've done that for a couple of years. I want to see when I post a video about bone broth, do people get excited about that? Sometimes my cooking and things like that are what people follow me for the most. And then I kind of have built upon that. But find out what people like about you, or what they see that you post about, And if you put a post out here or there about essential oils and it falls completely flat, you're going to need to brush up on that, or you're going to have to know that's not my best way. Like, I can close people in a class all day long, but when I post on social media, something falls flat, that might not be your best way. Okay, and you can grow in that for sure. I'm not saying not to, but also don't get caught up in the fact that that's how we should be building. Build according to what's your best way. And for me, it's not social media, although I love it and I'm going to play with it a little bit more and grow in it. But classes in my home, public classes in other people's home will always be where I find the most success. And I was talking to Keely yesterday. If you guys follow Essentially Obsessed, Keely is one of my great friends. And we were talking about, because it's very much a 1-2 punch. It's not one or the other. It's totally both. So not to go on a rant about social media, but I just hope that helps you. Okay. Oh yeah, I see a recommendation for Bob Heilig. He's very good. His trainings are not super expensive. In fact, I think this week he has a recruiting mastery week. I think it's going on this week for free. So if you haven't looked into his stuff, check it out. And a lot of times you guys, coaches and different things, have a lot of free products first for you to dive into before you have to like purchase a program. And sometimes that's enough to get your wheels spinning and get you into the right vein of reading and stuff like that. Okay. So I want you to figure out what you're going to read, set a time every single day to read, figure out what you're going to listen to, make sure you have Audible set up on your phone. It's like $15 a month for that, but it's very, very, very much worth it. And I was listening to a podcast once on real estate, because that's what my husband listens to all the time, which I don't mind. And it was just talking about what's a worthwhile investment. And the podcast guest said that reading, you can never overinvest in your own knowledge and skills. And so like buying books, investing in that, it's always going to be worthwhile. Never like put that to the side and be like, oh, we can't afford that, I'm not doing that. That's not where you want to cut the budget and pinch your pennies. Okay, you want to devour it, invest in it, push forward in those things. Okay. Yeah, I just saw Lisa, you said learning is one of my strengths. So you fall into the education trap. So for you, because personal development and actually the act of it is probably not hard, just set yourself a limit. Let yourself read for an hour a day. Let yourself study. Like, go into that, and then put actions to it. And then maybe at the end of the day, you get to go back to reading, and it's like your reward, but you have to make yourself do the action. Some of us, it's the opposite, where we do action, and we never stop to really grow and develop that muscle. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to go make my kids lunches for school. Have an awesome Tuesday. Stay safe if you're driving out in snow. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining today. Bye, everybody.